What will Oklahoma's projected record be in 2025? Before we get to that, let's look back at the projections from the last 4 seasons, again, with our projected record formula. In 2021, projection was 10-2. They went 10-2. In 2022, projection was 8-4. Disappointing year at 6-6. In 2023, 8-4. Again, the projection, they went 10-2. And then in 2024, 8-4 was the projection. They went 6-6. So, yeah, in 2021, it was exactly right. But the last 3 years, the projection's been the same. It's been 8-4, but this team has either underperformed or overperformed by a couple of games. So the projections have not been super accurate the last few years for Oklahoma. I think a lot of that comes down to a lot of close games and games that really could have gone either way. And, maybe they were better in those games in 2023 than they were in 22 and 24. And, if those games kind of split and go even, then maybe those projections would have been a little bit more accurate. But again, these are not my predictions. This is just a projection based off of our formula. It is all based off of our tier rankings, and Oklahoma is a tier 3 team. So here's the schedule and here's the scale. This is how we do it. So Oklahoma's in tier 3. That means if they were to play a tier 4 team, that game would be in the purple, 61-70, because they're in a tier above them. But if that game is on the road, then it drops down to a 50-50 game. Then it goes into the white. So that's kind of how it works. Let's jump in first with the easier games for Oklahoma. I think you've got Illinois State, Temple, Kent State. I know Temple's on the road, but still, this is a group of 5 team. Oklahoma should have no problems there. And so all 3 of these games will be counted as wins. And then you've got some games where I think it's going to be tough for Oklahoma. They're going to be underdogs, I don't think huge underdogs, but when we look at Texas, South Carolina, then we look at Tennessee and Alabama. All 4 of those games are going to be tough for Oklahoma. They're all going to be on the road, or 3 of them are going to be, well, they're all going to be away from home. 3 of them on the road, true road games, South Carolina, Tennessee, Alabama, and then Texas and Dallas, neutral site game. So those, to me, are clearly the 4 toughest games on this schedule in terms of who they play and where they play them. It's going to be tough for Oklahoma to win really any of those 4. If you can win one of the 4, go 1-3 in those games, I think that's a pretty successful run. But of course, if they lose 3 games, they're probably not going to make the college football playoff. But I would say, because of the difficulty of this schedule, a 9-3 Oklahoma team would have a shot. They would have a chance to make the playoff, depending on what happens across the rest of the country. So, that if you could win one of those 3 games, then win the rest of your games, I think Oklahoma would have a really good argument to make the college football playoff. Again, depending on what happens across the rest of the country. And then you've got really some 50-50 games here. Michigan, Auburn, Ole Miss, Missouri, and LSU. These are the 50-50 games for Oklahoma. Michigan is at home. Michigan's a tier above Oklahoma because that game's at home. That does make it a 50-50 game. Same thing with Ole Miss and LSU. Missouri, Auburn, same tier as Oklahoma. So the good news is your 5 50-50 games, the games that really could go either way, we feel like you've got all 5 of those at home. So the biggest swing games on this schedule, all at home for Oklahoma. So if they can take care of business and win those 5 games, then they've just got to go out there and still a win against Texas, South Carolina, Tennessee, or Alabama, and they can get into that 9-3, get to 9-3, and get into that playoff conversation. So that's really, in my opinion, where it's at for Oklahoma. You've got to win all the games at home, and then you've got to steal 1 on the road and hope that 9-3 with this schedule is enough to maybe get you in the playoff. I think, I don't see Oklahoma in the playoff this year. I just don't think that's going to happen. But there is a path there, again, for them to maybe get there at 9-3. With this schedule, I just do not see Oklahoma getting to 10-2. That would shock me if they went 10-2 with this schedule. It's just a really tough schedule. If Oklahoma had, let's say, Texas's schedule, I could see 10-2 as a possibility, but they don't. They have a really, really tough schedule. And so let's see what the projection is. Actually, it's 7-5. So again, the projection was 8-4 the last 3 years. This is a lower projection because probably in terms of this year and last year, probably because you have Michigan in the non-conference. That's probably why that dropped a game. But again, if you talk about Texas, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Alabama, let's say they do win one of those games. They go 1-3. Then you've got 5 50-50 games. If you lose, you already got 3 losses. So then if you lose 3 more, if you go 2-3 in those games, or go 3-2 in those games, and lose, all of the Well, really, no. If you go 3-2 in the 50-50 games, and then you go 1-3 in the games here in the yellow, that would get them to 7-5. So, yeah, I think that's a very fair projection. Again, with this schedule, it is a very, very tough schedule. But like I said, I think that's fair for Oklahoma, and it would be a better season than what they had last year if they're able to get to 7-5 in 2025.